Hello retro fans! I've got a lot of new stuff this week and basically, well, over the last 2 weeks. And well, I will give you a short overview what has been arrived so far and what's going to be the plan with all those things. And then let's head directly to the content. And as we can see, I think one of the biggest things is this Commodore C64 Aldi edition, and this is a very special thing that has been produced in cooperation with Commodore and Aldi, which is some kind of a discounter here in Germany. And the main thing about, or the main difference about the Aldi C64s is the keyboard. As you can see, the Aldi C64 bread bin shares the very same keyboard like most of the C64-2 with a 466 board, and you can see that the PCB symbols or signs, whatever you want to call this, characters, are printed on the front side of the keys, not on top. So basically most of the white keyboards or the bright keyboards, are looking like this. You got the PCB symbols on top of this, but here it is different. Here, like with the brown keys, you have this on the front side of the keys. And we will give this a short test in a few minutes, but in order to do so, we may have to make some space on my desk, and therefore let's go through the content step by step. So, okay. The next thing that has arrived is a box full of keycaps, and that's very surprising because those keycaps are produced by a project, I think Phase 5, that's the name of the guy who's doing this. And this was basically a crowdfunding project. I'm not sure whether it was Kickstarter or Indiegogo or something like this. And these keys are the very first prototypes out of this project. And someone at Forum 64 offered them. And I thought it's going to be very interesting to use them for whatever project I have in mind in the future. As you can see, they are not printed, so they are blank. So I have to figure out a way to kind of add some characters to them, and I have seen some very nice vinyl adhesive tape sticker, whatever you want to call this, and probably something like this, or I will find someone who is doing prints on them using kind of I think it's some kind of foil or something like this. And as you can see, that's a broad mix. We've got a lot of crystal clear caps in hopefully different sizes. Yes, here are the bigger ones and these are the smaller ones. And they even have different shades. Interesting, so that's going to be a very nice project. And I got some kind of white keys as well as some red keys. So, and as you may imagine that the white, the red and the black keys are not enough to equip one C64 keyboard. It's going to be some kind of a mix, and I have no spacebar so far. So it's going to be a combination of all of them, but I think that's going to be useful for some of my forthcoming C64 mods. So a lot of noise, I'm sorry for this. Let's move on to the next thing. And these are 2 PCBs I have received, and these are prototype expansion port cartridge PCBs. And that's very interesting because during one of my last projects I spent some time getting signals from the expansion port, and I have something special in mind that perhaps going to be used in the near future for a project. And so I'm very happy that I got 2 of those PCBs. And as you can see, the C64 card proto by Frank Bus. And Frank Bus is the guy who made I'm not very well prepared, I have to admit. That's the guy who made the Kerberos Midi cartridge. And, well, interesting. It's just some trivia beside this. And I'm not going to talk about the project because I have to do some research and development, as we tend to say, and then perhaps I'm going to reveal this pretty soon. And then I have received this pretty beaten up box of a Flight Simulator 2 for the C64. And the funny thing is that I have never been a big fan in particular for flight simulations on the C64 because they are awful slow. But the interesting thing about this one is that it has some special features that makes it really kind of unique on the C64. And what I've learned during my journey with flight simulators, that this is kind of the initial version that became later the famous Microsoft Flight Simulator. And the interesting thing here is that this program is using some kind of a split screen technique. So it uses two different graphic modes on the upper half of the screen and on the lower half of the screen. So this is actually not a screenshot from the C64 because the C64 is a monochrome at the bottom and has a high-res graphic mode for all the instruments here. This makes it very good to read and good to handle. And it's using the full color mode for the upper half, the, let's say, the outside, the world view of this flight simulator. And what it makes so interesting for me is that this works very well, at least it works with the turbo mode of the Turbo Chameleon cartridge. So I was able to crank it up to I think 3 megahertz, and this provides some kind of, well, I would say fluid flying experience, and therefore it makes a lot of fun to fly this. And you have basically two modes. One is some kind of, let's say, arcade mode, easy mode, beginner mode, and one is called real simulation mode. And especially in real simulation, it is indeed a bit hard to fly this. I think it's a Piper 1 engine 2-seat plane. Makes it a little bit tricky to fly with this small plane. And it is very interesting, especially if you keep in mind that there is a whole collection of scenery discs available. And this makes it very interesting because there's one scenery disc that captures the west part of Europe. So it's one part of Germany, one part of France, and I think some Switzerland, something like this. I'm not really sure right now, but I just tested the Germany part so far, I'm sorry. And I tried to fly from Munich to Paris, and I just recognized that's too long for a small plane like this, and I have to do some kind of hopping between the different airports, and I had some troubles finding the other airports, and so I decided I really have to get this as an original version because it comes with a lot of maps, and it comes with a very interesting and comprehensive Pilot's Operation Handbook and Airplane Flight Manual. So I hope this is going to answer some questions. And here we have, in addition, flight physics and aircraft control. So this is going to be an in-depth study of how to operate an airplane and how all the physics are working on the thingy. So I'm really happy that I got this, even if the box looks a bit, well, rotten. But anyway. And As you may imagine, I'm not going to play this from the original disc because I already got the disc image from the internet, and there is a very good D81 disc image release that cuts the loading time down to, I would say, a tenth or something like this, and this makes this whole game very much enjoyable. So much about the flight simulator. Perhaps we're going to have a special episode about this. Maybe some live streaming, let's play something. And I'm really looking forward to your comments when you see me flying. That's probably a very enjoyable experience. So then I have received something more, and this is perhaps a little bit confusing because it doesn't look like it's something for the C64, but it is related to the C64. And what it makes even more interesting is that I have received an additional package, which I'm going to present in a few minutes, which is heavily related to this project. But let's go through this step by step and start with these two beauties. And as you can see, it's quite a huge PCB with a lot of components on it. And the very important thing is, maybe it is kind of readable. Going to be out of focus, but here it is written SID, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is the main PCB for the Midibox SID synthesizer, MB6581. And you may scratch your head and ask the question, what the heck is this? I'm going to show you this. I have already a fully assembled version, and it looks like this, and it's a very nice box, and this was coming out of kind of a bulk order, bus order, organized by some nice guys at the Midibox forum. I have a hard time remember the correct name, but I will post the link in the comment section down below. And this is basically a full working synthesizer using up to 8 SID chips, and this is indeed a very crazy project, and you may have recognized this already in my intro. And the new intro music I'm using since a couple of weeks is completely done with this Midibox, and fortunately it is already open, so let's have a look inside. And here we can see how this PCB looks like when it is already populated with a couple of components. And as you may recognize, I already started to have some experiments with SID replacements. So I added 2 ARM SIDs to the Midibox, and it's going to be my next project to replace all of the original SIDs with ARM SIDs. I have to change a couple of things because those capacitors are too big, and the ARM SID requires a little bit more space than an original SID. And this is going to improve the sound quality a bit, and it is going to reduce the heat inside the box drastically, and therefore I think it's going to be a very interesting project. And as mentioned already, I started to test this already, and I have a very good experience using the ARM SIDs for especially this thing here. And the second thing that's actually blocked by the box is going to be the control PCB, which is actually on this side. So that's the PCB that holds all those knobs, LEDs and the display, and this is required as well. So this is going to be the combo like this, and I will start to collect all the required components over the next weeks, so I do not have that much pressure with this project, because the main thing I was looking for was this PCB, and this is the so-called Midibox or Midi sequencer, Midibox Sec V4 I think, and this is a hardware sequencer. I think I'm holding it in the wrong way. It's going to be like this. And this is a hardware sequencer, step sequencer, with a lot of options. I went through the manual already, and I'm still trying to grasp what this thing is capable of. And my main idea is to use this either in combination with Ableton Live, which I'm using right now, or perhaps I'm going to build a standalone version out of this Midibox SEC, as it is written here. And my long-term goal is to, as you may already guess, build a second Midibox, and this is going to replace my C64 setup almost completely. It's a bit sad as well, I know, and I had a hard time deciding this, but I've learned that the comfort of using the Midibox, and especially the quality and especially the sounds already pre-manufactured for the Midibox, are really so great, and especially the drums and the drum machine itself is capable of so many different sounds. This is really a major step forward compared to Messiah. I mean, I'm a big fan of Messiah, and it is really a very great package, but it is already a little bit dusty, a little bit old. It really requires some updates here and there, and therefore I decided the main purpose is perhaps to use a C64, but the main purpose is to use the SID chip to make sounds, to make music, even if I'm not very talented with this, but anyway. And in order to make some progress here, I decided to focus myself on the Midibox, and therefore I'm going to use probably 2 of them, and then I have plenty of options to make very rich multi-layered sounds. So much about this. Then let's get this aside to make some space. And now we're going to cover the part which I have already mentioned, which is interestingly related to what I have mentioned right now. This box came from Australia, and there are a lot of labels on it, so let's see whether I can open this up without revealing too much private information. Nowadays it's a little bit, well, sensitive. And I have received this from Australia, from the guy who won the Pi 1541 challenge, or well, giveaway, a couple of months ago already. And as you can see, it's an assembly kit. Very interesting, very comfortable. And we're going to have some case parts. And here you can already see it's the so-called Sammich SID. And the Sammich SID is basically the little brother of the Midibox. So it is done by the very same guy, the very same project. And yeah, we have some very nice red PCBs. Looks gorgeous in my mind. And the Sammich SID, as I said, is the little brother of the Midibox because it can be equipped with up to 2 SID chips. And I'm definitely going to add 2 SID chips to this. And then you have basically the same functionality like you have with the Midibox. You have the same 4 different engines: the lead engine, the drum engine, the multi engine, and the bassline engine. And you have a lot of presets already on the firmware already. And this is going to be a project I have to complete pretty soon, because this is a synthesizer my wife is going to use, and she's making music as well. And she is asking for some very nice and dirty-ish SID sounds. And so I thought the best way is I built her a Sammich SID synthesizer, and then she can start right away working with the sounds by herself. And I'm very happy that this is already complete, so including the case. So I hope that this is going to be kind of very fluid process. And As usual, this will be covered by a new episode. Ta-ta! But probably not a live session, because it will take a little bit more time than just 20-30 minutes or something like this. Well, and that's basically all I have received, and I think it's already a lot of stuff. And as promised, we are going to have a short test with the C64 Aldi. Let's see whether it is booting up, or if this is going to be the next repair job, because the C64 Aldi is not something that will remain long here in my rooms, so to say, my whatever, because this is a order I'm going to do for a guy from Italy, and he is actually desperately waiting impatiently for this one, and we're going to add a lot of things to it, and I think it's going to be a very beautiful machine, and therefore let's see whether it starts or if it goes up in flames already. So we're going to need some video. So, and perhaps we're going to need some sound as well. And just in case we're going to load something, let's connect my Pi 1541 in an upcycled IC card box case. Probably the most compact Pi 1541 you can find on the market right now. And well, let's try to power this on and see whether it is working. No signal. LEDs lighting, and there it is. Very nice, very clear picture. So we already guessed that this is going to be a 469 board, I think, because it looks short. I do not expect to see a 466 board inside here, but basically that looks very nice. Typing is working, so let's see whether we can add a disk image quite quickly. I have to select a disk image, not a program. Anyway. And see whether we can load something. So it looks like everything is working fine. Oops, wrong key. The keyboard works very well, so I think I do not have to spend the time to disassemble the whole keyboard and clean it. So this is really in very fantastic condition, and I'm really looking forward to the project. It's going to be a lot of work, but I think it's going to be worth it. And well, yeah, that's basically already the end of this episode. We made it in under 30 minutes. I'm very proud, and as soon as Galencia is going to start, we will kind of say goodbye. So as usual, thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments, ideas, questions, thoughts, whatever, feel free to use the comment section as usual, and feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so already. I really appreciate this. And if you want to stay informed in a more frequent way, feel free to follow me on Twitter as well. You can find C64 Customs over there, very same name. And yeah, that's basically all for today. I'm really surprised that the loading takes so long. I haven't used the C64 without Jiffy DOS for weeks now. So I'm really used to much faster loading times. And well, but it's the good old time. I mean, back in the 80s, 90s, it was common that we had to wait a little bit. And fortunately, it's not going to be a tape version. And there it is, with sound and everything. So it's actually coming in just mono, because I have set my breakout adapter to break out a stereo signal, and this C64 is delivering just one mono signal. Anyway, that's all for the day, as mentioned already. See you for the next episode. Thank you very much for watching, and bye bye. Hopefully now.